All right, as soon as we see that, then I see there's some AI ones. So before I get totally going, I'm going to make sure we remove any of our AI friends here along here. Some of you guys have the note takers, so we're going to remove all of those.
I'll help you with that. I just
Okay,
did that one.
okay, yeah, if you just want to pull them off, I'll keep going because there's a lot of little otters. All right, welcome everybody. This today's topic was by request. We've had a lot of people say, "Can you guys do more scenarios training?" And so today our goal is we're going to have some interactive polls. And my personal goal is by the time we get done with these 6 scenarios, that hopefully as an audience as a whole, we're coming up with similar answers. So sometimes when we do these, we wind up having, half of us think it's eligible, half of us think it doesn't. So our goal is not to give you really lots of curveballs, is to make sure everyone understands basic eligibility. There are a few things you'll have to look at and think about. And also, we always want to remind you that whatever your state says is what you do. And so if your state has some sort of particular rule that I'm saying something different, go talk to your supervisors. But whatever they tell you, you do what they tell you. So that's the interesting thing is we have all of the regulations that we're supposed to follow, and then there are some areas for interpretation. And so we're going to try to stick very much to what's white and black, not a lot in the gray areas, but we will discuss a few things that sometimes you can think about from your particular state's view. So welcome everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. So realizing that some of you are probably brand new and some of you are veterans and there's probably a lot of people in between, we've been training a little bit different the last little bit because we're realizing on our national assessment that tons of people are having a hard time with finding the most recent qualifying arrival date and the residency date. And that can be, if you've been around a long time, it may be because of all the other rules in your head. And so I want to kind of start fresh to realize to show here that we know that eligibility can be, there's a lot of things to think about. But for us, one of the first things is identifying if there's a migratory agricultural worker. And so when I start doing the training here in a little bit, we talk about eligibility, we're going to focus first on the migratory agricultural worker and how that was established. And then we'll look at the child and all the things that go with it. And so we're going to refer back to this here in a bit, and everyone will get a copy of the slides. But I want to really talk a little bit first about all the things that we're trying to look at. We're trying to look at their age. We're trying to look at the education. We're trying to look at their movement. We're trying to look at the motivation of, why they move from place to place. And then one of the really important things is determining if there's a migratory agriculture worker that they've moved with or that's with them. And so, or they themselves are the worker. So just to get us all on the same page before we start the scenarios, I want you to realize, to just think about how important that 36-month agriculture worker status is. I feel like in the past we would just say, well, have they moved in the last 36 months and did they move for agriculture and get a job within 60 days? Well, when that happens, when a worker picks up and moves and gets a job in agriculture within 60 days, they're considered a migratory agriculture worker. So this status stays with them for 36 months. The interesting thing that many people are getting wrong on the assessment is you have your standard moves where the family picks up and moves in agriculture and everything's pretty easy to figure out. But is there a world that they could pick up and move and work in construction? And let me see your answers in the chat box. Work in construction and get a new qualifying arrival date? Is that possible? Okay. Yes, yes, yeah. I got a no. I got several no's and lots of yeses. Yes, it is totally possible. So you have to look at that window of when that migratory agriculture worker was established. And then you look at, did the child move with an established migratory agriculture worker? And even if they've moved, as long as it's across school district lines and due to economic necessity and a change of residence, they can actually work in a non-ag job and get a new QAD. So we're going to talk about this. So it says here, a new qualifying arrival date, the date eligibility starts, can be given whenever a child moves with an established migratory agriculture worker, even if they do not move to work in agriculture if all other criteria is met. So at some point, somebody had to pick up and move to get a job within agriculture within 60 days. And once that happens, you have the migratory agriculture worker established. So like it says here, a subsequent move, which we refer to in a lot of our trainings, is a move made for economic necessity with an established migratory agriculture worker. You shouldn't overlook that. So for example, the worker picked up and moved, got a job in meat processing and eligible work in that for 3 months, and then picks up and moves with the family to your state for construction work with the family. In that particular situation, as long as they met all the criteria and if it was due to economic necessity, then they could get a new QID. So I'm going to look in the chat to see if anyone says you are out of your mind. This is not true. I had lots of yeses, but we did have a few no's. And I want you to feel brave enough that if you think that what I'm saying is not right, feel free to put your comments in, because all of us have to take all the eligibility rules and cram them in our head. And then when someone gives a situation, we have to then sort with our head through all the different eligibility rules and come up with a reason. And so sometimes we may be thinking about a particular thing that's hanging us up and thinking, well, no, they didn't get a job within 60 days in agriculture. And it maybe you've been in the program for many years and that used to be the rule. And so your brain is like, no, that's not. But we want to rewire it and make sure that you're comfortable with that. So comment is there very important economic necessity? Yes, absolutely important. So just remember that clock, it used to be that you just had this clock for the child, 36 months, wherever they picked up and they were eligible for the program. Now you have almost two of them going on. You've got one going on with your migratory agricultural worker, figuring out the last time that was established, and then you have your child eligibility for up to 36 months, once you give them a new QAD. So someone says we only give them a QA on the previous job. Well, we're gonna go through this, and you can kind of see, because subsequent moves absolutely do qualify, as long as the other criteria is met. So our goal is that when I share with the poll, and it's an anonymous poll, so we can't figure out how we're not going to use the chat box. When we put the scenarios up, it's going to be totally anonymous, and then we're going to ask you for your thoughts, and we will not proceed on until we have at least 50% of you that participate, and then we can share out so we can see where people are thinking with a particular situation. So make sure you're not missing those subsequent moves with a migratory agriculture worker. So if your state is only saying, well, we only do it on the move with agriculture, you're missing a chance to be able to extend eligibility in a completely way that you can do it and get a new QAD for those kiddos according to the guidance and the regulations. Okay, so our core eligibility framework, the migratory agricultural worker. So the parent, spouse, or child who obtained qualifying work within 60 days of a move, they're considered an MAW or migrant agriculture worker for 36 months after. The qualifying work has to be seasonal or temporary agriculture, dairy, or fishing work, cannot be year-round permanent employment, and they have to make a qualifying move. And the qualifying move is across school district lines due to economic necessity and from one residence to another. So has to happen within the last 36 months. You're always going to look up that full history. The child had to have joined the worker within 12 months. So if it's over that, it's not going to help us. And again, that secondary moves, those subsequent moves, you want to look at that because it could result in a new qualifying arrival date. All right, so we're going to start with the scenario. And like I said, I'm not trying to be super complicated here. What we're going to do is look at the scenario. If they're eligible, we'll have an example of the COE, because sometimes people say, okay, well, how would you write the COE for that? And our purpose in this was not to make really crazy ones. It's just to see if we can all get the residency date right, the qualifying arrival date right, and decide if the family actually is eligible or not. So first scenario, on March 30th, 2026, Ernesto Reyes, a farm worker from a small Texas border town, finished his work in the onion harvest and heard that a large onion harvest was ramping up in Vidalia, Georgia. He packed up his family, his wife Maria and two children, Lucia and Marco, and he drove to Toombs County, Georgia to seek seasonal work on the onion farms. He secured employment harvesting onions within days of arriving. The family crossed school district lines and enrolled the children in the local public school. They plan to stay through July 26th, then return to Texas. So you are the recruiter and find them on July 26th. And we'll say they haven't moved yet to Texas. So is this family eligible? Do not put your answer into the chat. Don't put your answer in there. I'm going to put the poll up. So you may know the answer, but we want to make sure everybody's got it. I'm going to put the poll up, and I'm going to wait until we have 50% of you guys. So you should go ahead. You should see the poll. Go ahead and answer that. I'll mute myself, and once I see we're at 50%, we'll share the answers. Okay, we're at 22%. We're looking for 50%. We'd love to have 100%, but at least 50%. Okay, so we're officially at 53%, 54, 55. All right, let me go ahead and end the poll, and I will share this here. Okay, so let's share the results. So it says this family, is this family eligible? You have 98% of you say yes. It looks like one said no, and 4 said they're not sure. And it's totally fine if you're not sure because that's why you're here. And then here's where we get this is where we struggle with. We have 60% of you guys say that March 30th, 2026 is the qualifying arrival date. 25% of you say no, it's July 2026. 3% of you say it's April 1st, and 12% of you say I'm not sure. And then if we look at residency date, we have 38% of you say July 2026, 46% of you say March 30th, and 16% say not sure. Okay, so let's look at this. I always like to go through the thought process of this. So March 30th, Ernesto Reyes, a farm worker from a small Texas border town, finishes work in the onion harvest. Now, if I was the recruiter, I would want to know, like, okay, well, how long had they been there? Was he already established as a migratory agriculture worker? But I don't have enough information right there. So he was working in onions, and then he hears about the work in Vidalia, Georgia. So he packs up his family, and he goes to work on this. So when he gets employment when he gets there. So he leaves on March 30th. When is he considered a migratory agriculture worker? Use the chat box. What would you say? When does he become a migratory agriculture worker? And don't raise your hand, put it in the chat box. What do you think? Okay, someone says, well, I'm confused. Yeah, some of this you're like trying to figure out the dates here, so we might not have everything that you need. So several of you said March 30th. So when he makes a move and gets agriculture work within 60 days, he becomes a migratory agriculture worker. So did his kids move with him at the same time? Did they come together? Yes. Yes, so they're all together. So we know that he picked up and moved and he got a job on March 30th, 2026. He's established a migratory agriculture worker, but he also moved for agriculture. They all came together. So what would be the QAD? So we've got some July dates here. The QAD is what? It's the date, there's the residency date, and then there's the QAD. The residency date is the date they moved into their current school district, when they became a resident of that school district. So that would be March 30th, the day they moved, that they got there. Let's just assume he did everything and arrived on March 30th. So the July 26th really has nothing to do with it. It's just they thought they were going to stay there. You're the recruiter and you find them. So those of you that put July 26th, if I have somebody that's a really brave soul that's like, this is the reason why I thought July 26th, if you guys are willing to put your answers there, because you were not the only ones that thought that. So someone says there's no data on QAD. So why would there be no data? We know that he picked up and moved. We know that okay, so it is a little confusing, but let's say he showed up on April 1st. But we're going to say he showed up on March 30th. Maybe they'd move back to Texas and there would be no new QAD then. Okay, question on that. So let's say that you find them. Let's see, it says, I thought it was Texas recruiter. After they finished in Vidalia, I was recruiting them in Texas. So okay, so that makes sense. So if he was the recruiter in July, in Texas, that would be a new QAD. So that would be right if that was the thing. But if you were still in Georgia, then you would have the QAD from the previous one. Okay, so this is an example of sometimes you've got plenty of information on here, but you would be asking a few clarifying questions for the families. And so the thought of you that said, hey, if it's July 26th, if he had gone back to Texas in July 26th and got a job in construction, and the whole family moved together, could they have gotten a new QAD in July 26? Okay, yes, 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 you're absolutely correct. So on this, the QAD with the way it currently is, we're saying he arrived, he left, and he arrives on March 30th. Maybe he comes the midnight that day. He gets there and he gets a job within a few days. That would be a QAD for them. That would also be the residency date. And if he was still in Georgia, then the July 26th date is just the date that the recruiter finds them. It wouldn't really have anything. It wouldn't give them a new QAD. It wouldn't give them a residency date. So for this particular one, you're looking and thinking, yes, he is looking for seasonal farm worker, farm labor. He did get a job in onion harvest. He did move from Texas to Georgia, and his children are with him. So it would be a qualifying move. And then you could look and say, okay, he is a migratory agriculture worker, and if he picks up and you found him in another state, then you know that you could look at that window. But at this point, it's yes, they picked up, they moved, they got job in this, the children came with them. So the qualifying arrival date would be the same as the residency date in this case. So the COE would look something like this. Some of you have always said, well, show us the COE. So I'll make the next slide, we'll make this large. So this one's pretty simple. It's just showing, okay, you know, where they came from. They came from Texas to Georgia. They came with the worker. The worker moved due to economic necessity from Texas to Georgia here, harvesting onions. And you can see here. So there's a comment. The Georgia recruiter finds them and identifies them as an eligible migrant agricultural worker. Then sent the info on a move notice to Texas. So you're the Texas recruiter going to meet and interview with this information. Great example of what questions to keep asking. Yeah, so you have to kind of look and think of these things. Now, question, if you find someone who came 2 years ago, the QAD is when they first arrived. Okay, so yeah, I mean, if they've not picked up and moved and they originally, let's say that they moved to, you know, to Georgia, it was in 2024, and they've not moved again, but they did come from onions, and of course it wasn't a year-round job or anything, it was a seasonal thing, then yes, you wouldn't have a new move to start a new qualifying arrival date, so you would have to go with, you know, it would have been the, you know, 2 years ago. And then the question is, why does it take 2 years to find them? Yes, sometimes. So if this recruiter had found them in 2028. Yeah, so if, you know, that we're looking down the road or something. But yeah, so both of those are good points that you could find somebody 2 years after the move, but if it is, then you know that we're missing people and we got that. So, okay. So we intentionally left a few details out just to get you thinking of those things. Not all of them are missing, you know, details, but most of them you have somewhere to go on. We want you to think about why. And so we could have said, well, no, the July QAD is not right. The logic of why some of you were saying that absolutely would have been correct if you were the Texas recruiter. They had just moved back. You know that it was established migratory agriculture worker. Then that would have been correct. So, so very good. Okay, next one. So this is Rosa Mendez, a single mother of 3, initially moved from Immokalee, Florida to Pitt County, North Carolina on April 4th, 2026 to plant tobacco. She got work planting tobacco, and after the planting season ended in June, Rosa heard of strawberry work in Tennessee and moved her family there July 12th, 2026. When she got there, she realized the harvest was over. She got a job cleaning rooms in a hotel in the meantime. Her son Diego got a job at a local farm taking care of horses, peacocks, and donkeys for 2 weeks before school started when he enrolled. So don't put your answer in the chat. I'm going to open the poll up again. Let me drop up number 2. And same thing, we'll give you, so we get at least 50%. And remember, think it through. Think, when is there a migratory agriculture worker? And we're always trying to find the most recent QAD. So what would that be? I will be quiet and give you some time to answer. Okay, right now we're at 34%. Okay, so we made it to 54. Thank you guys for your participation. So on the first question, we're almost 100% in agreement. We're at 97% say, yes, this family is eligible. 3% say no. Number two, it says, if eligible, what would be the QAD? So 32% say April 4th, 2026. 67% say July 12th, 2026. So we are not in agreement on that one. Then number three, does Diego qualify based off his mom's work or his, oh yeah, that's not helpful. Let me share it. So let me go back. So you got the first one, 97 to 3%. If eligible, you've got the large majority of you are saying, well, 67% of you are saying July 12th is the QAD, with 32% of you holding strong saying April 4th. 2% are saying they're not eligible, and nobody says they don't know. Number three, does Diego qualify based off his mom's work or his work? 54% of you say his mom's. 2% now say they're not eligible. We picked up a few more. And 44% of you say off of his work. And then if you look at if they're eligible, what would be the residency date? We've got the 4 of you holding strong saying they're not eligible. 12 of you saying April 4th, and 86% now say July 12th. So let's look through this. So we've got Rosa. When does she get established as a migratory agriculture worker? She moves. Someone said I would only use son only if it was economic necessity and his income goes to the household. If not, I would use mom. So let's just think this through. Rosa, single mother 3, she moves to plant tobacco. She works planting tobacco. So is she established migratory agriculture worker on April 4th? Yes or no? So on April 4th, she's established as a migratory agriculture worker. Now, that gives me this window that they could move for a lot of different reasons, and they'll get, as long as it's due to economic necessity across school district lines and a change of residence, I have this 36-month window. If they pick up and move with a migratory agriculture worker, they can get a new QAD as long as those other 3 factors are in place. So she gets work planting tobacco, and then she hears of strawberry work. So she picks up, moves her family on July 12, 2026. She has the intent of working in agriculture. Is she established again as a migratory agriculture worker on that move or not? Yes or no? What do you think? Okay, I've got a no. I've got some yeses. Those of you that say no, why? Those of you that say yes, why? So if you say no, yes, but no. So if you said yes, that she was reestablished, okay, my question is would that status as a migratory agriculture worker start again in July 12th, 2026, or are you still relying on the old status she has? I have no idea what a RHM is. Someone says that on there. Okay, lots of comments coming in. Okay, so no, Corina's correct. It says, no, she's not reestablished as a migratory agriculture worker. She still has her remaining window of that, but it doesn't matter. Intent does not matter. She didn't get agriculture work at the time. She got a job cleaning rooms. So now you've got to look at, is there a migratory agriculture worker? Yes, she's still in that window. So just based off mom, can they get a new qualifying arrival date on that July 12th, 2026 move? Yes or no? Let me see. Oh, going too fast. Let me look at I meant to look at all your comments here. Some say yes, no, yes, no, 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 she did not obtain qualifying work, but she does have a qualifying move on June 12th. Where's June 12th? Or July? Okay, old status. So lots of comments here. It's a subsequent move. She does not have qualifying work on that. So basically, you've got a bunch of yeses here at the end saying yes, those kiddos, when they pick up and move, they are moving with a migratory agriculture worker. So those that said they're eligible, yes, they're eligible. Now there's the question of, her son Diego. So her son Diego gets a job at a local farm taking care of horses, peacocks, and donkeys. Is that an eligible activity? Could you, if Diego was all by himself, could he get qualified? Could he be eligible just off of that? What do we think? Let's look at your thoughts. Let's see. I have some no's. Someone said, how old is Diego? So, nope. Those of you that are saying no, why? Those are you saying yes, why? Because you got both. So, first of all, let's say horses, peacocks, and donkeys, are those normally eligible work? Yes, he's taking care of a living. It depends on what he was doing. No, that's not a qualifying work. It depends. Have to determine. There's the comment. Have to determine whether it's recreational. So these guys just have horses because they like them. They have peacocks because they think they're beautiful. And the donkeys help keep the pests, coyotes away from the peacocks. Yes or no? No. So someone says, okay, possibly. So in what world would that qualify if it was horses, peacocks, and donkeys? Tell me a scenario where that could qualify. Because the majority of the time, these would all be kind of recreational things. Peacocks, you're not really, they're not really eating those. Donkeys. Okay, someone says, sounds like a zoo. Someone says working horses for haying. Horses used for farm work. Um, so it can be livestock, but again, it can't be recreational. So that was the real important thing. If it wasn't considered, if it wasn't for consumption, or like if you had a big ranch and you used the horses to help round up the cows or to do something with that, or the donkeys, maybe you used them as pack animals to go get your cows that are up in the mountains or something. But the majority of the time, these three are going to be a real red flag to say, well, this could be recreational and not livestock that's for consumption. So if this, is just because this family loves horses, peacocks, and donkeys, they don't sell them, they don't eat them, they just have them for fun, and maybe they compete in some competitions, and they have donkeys because of some, they just for fun, would that be eligible? Would Diego qualify on his own? It doesn't, you could feed recreational animals and it would still not be eligible. So it would have to be something that's for consumption or related to other livestock that is for consumption. Okay, seeing lots of no's there. Very good. So someone said cleaning stalls. So even if you were cleaning stalls, like where I live, for example, there are the Tennessee walking horses like an hour and a half away. There are a ton of workers that come and they have walking horse shows and they clean out stalls all day of these horses, but they're not eligible because it's a recreational thing. This is not considered livestock for consumption. And so really important that you look at just because they clean stalls, that doesn't mean they could be eligible. So would have to ask clarifying questions to determine. So even if they're eating them, so the question is if you had the horses, peacocks, and donkeys, and the family was eating them, again, that's going to be really hard to find a family that's eating their horses, peacocks, and donkeys. But that is a good thing to think about if it was something else that you could say, well, they are eating them or they have, that. What about selling peacock feathers? Great question. What do you guys say? Someone says, well, their job is, maybe they make earrings out of the feathers and they sell the peacock feathers. Oh God, no, no, yes, no, no, no. So again, that would probably be a question I would take to my state to say, but again, um, so there you go. Here's where we get to look at every little aspect. So on this, I would go with what the mom's already an established migratory agriculture worker. So you are within that window. They can get a new QAD when they moved July 12th. So those of you that said April 4th, which is 12% of you, let me look back. What was it? No, 32% of you said the last QAD that you would go on would be the April 4th instead of the July 12th. When you could go with the July 12th, you wouldn't have to. So there are several states that have made a real point, which we all should be doing that of when was the last qualifying arrival day, the qualifying, when was that? And so for this family, it would be July 12th, 2026. What is the residency date? Also July 12th, 2026, because it's when they moved into their current district. Okay, so, all right, here we go. Let me stop sharing this one and let me show the COE for this one. And the question was, does the North Carolina Tennessee move reset the QAD? It absolutely does. So we can confirm there was a qualifying move. We know that they, moved before there. We've got assess the, is there a migratory agricultural worker? You're looking at that secondary move, seeing what the QAD is. So Diego is eligible. You would have a harder time trying to do it on your own without, the mom, because that particular livestock is going to look much more recreational than for that. Let me look at the comment. What about pin the tail dog? It's similar to cleaning machine for planting and seeding, and horses can be used for plowing fields. It depends on the situation. So yeah, you would have to know for sure. Like the cleaning machines and the meat processing doesn't qualify for meat processing. So you'd have to learn, but if it was just for recreational, then absolutely not. So yeah, let me see. Okay, so COE is looking something like this, where we're focusing on the move from Greenville to Tennessee. And let me make it bigger so you can kind of see here. You're looking at, this is a subsequent move that you're seeing that is from North Carolina to Portland, Tennessee. And Rosa's coming. The worker moved due to economic necessity from Florida to North Carolina, and they were planting tobacco. So you're referencing that prior move when that migratory agriculture worker was established, but then you can show the qualifying arrival date is on this new move. Okay. Yeah, good comment. Main thing is horses never qualify in Kentucky. We're known for breeding them for sport and recreation. It says box 4B box is missing. Oh, yep. Good thinking. Okay, so that would be agriculture. Thank you, thank you. So that's good for your reviewer minds. Next, I want to see, all right, if there's anything missing, let me know. Okay, moving on. So scenario 3. Let's see. For those 3 years, Rosa keeps moving and getting new qualifying work. Family still qualifies. How about she continues beyond the 3 years? Okay, good question. So anytime that the family, so Rose, anytime that she picks up and moves, and gets work in agriculture within 60 days, she can be reestablished as a migratory agriculture worker. Now, right here, we can see that happened on April 4, 2026. So that window goes until when? April 3rd of what year? She's considered a migratory agriculture worker until when? Until 2029, yes. So to answer your question, that family could move all the way to April 1st, 2029 and get a new QAD as long as it was within that eligibility time. I mean, that migratory agriculture worker status, that she's still within that. Now, if she never makes it again, that's the end of it. That they can't keep going. That would be the end of it. But if she's established again, then of course that same thing will come back into play. But if she does not pick up and move and get agriculture within 60 days, it's never going to be restarted after that. But you have all the way within that window that they could pick up and move for whatever reason, as long as it's due to economic necessity, cross school district lines, and to a new residence, then they could get a new QAD all the way up until like April 2nd of 2020, 2029. Okay. Daniel, I hope that answers your question. Okay, so moving on to another one. Out of school youth. When school isn't in the picture, Javier, age 17, dropped out of school 2 years ago. He lives with his uncle Tomas. On May 17, 2026, Tomas moved from Texas, Colonias community to Fresno County, California to work trimming grapevines at a local vineyard. Tomas trims the vines and also helps sell the grapes at the local farmer's market. Javier went with him and worked at the vineyard for 1 day, but then suffered heat exhaustion, and he has not returned to work. So again, I'm going to put the poll up here. And let me go back, give you scenario 3. The question is he eligible on his own as a migratory agriculture worker? What's the QAD? What is the residency if he is eligible? So same rules, we'll look for 50%, and then we'll get started again. Okay, we are at 30%. Okay, so here's the results. And it says, the question is, Javier eligible on his own as a migratory agriculture worker? 77% of you say yes, 16% of you say no, and 6% of you say not sure. And then if he is eligible, what would be the QAD? 79% of you say 5/17/26. 8% say the day he started working. 1% said the day he stopped working, and 13% say he's not eligible. What would be the residency date? 12% say not eligible, 88% say 5/17/26. So, okay. So let's think about this. Same thing. So, who is the established? Javier drops out of school. He's not an established migratory agriculture worker yet. He lives with his uncle Tomas. Now, we don't have enough information to know what they're doing, before they pick up and move. But on May 17, 2026, Tomas moved from Texas to Fresno County to work trimming grapevines at the local vineyard. And Tomas trims the vines and also helps sell the grapes. So let's say he got the job there. So would he be considered a migratory agriculture worker? Would Tomas be considered one? Yes. Okay. Now we have to know a little bit more about the relationship between, we know that, Javier's going with his uncle. Could you consider Tomas a guardian of Javier, or what would you say on that? Okay, we've got lots of yeses on this. So Javier goes with him. One of the questions was, well, could we consider that as a move? So it's showing that he went from Texas. He goes with him all the way to California. So we can consider that a move. And his whole intent, he wants to go to work. He goes to work. He works for a full day, but then he gets sick because due to the heat. So a large majority of you say yes, he qualifies on his own as a migratory agriculture worker. But then there was also a decent percentage that said no. Those of you that say yes, why? Those of you that say no, why? Let's see. Would you sign him up off one day of work? I'm trying to see. There are several comments. Tomas could be the guardian. And then Nancy says, well, if Javier is supporting him. So if so, it doesn't matter if he worked. So if you're going to look at going from Tomas there. So some says yes, because he worked for a day. Yes, because he worked in ag work. Yes, because he did the work, even if it was for one day. Yes, he worked. Now, some of you say no. Some of you had a no. So what those of you that say no, said he absolutely would not qualify on his own as a migratory agriculture worker. Why would you say that? What do you think? Says the question is, someone says, yes, Javier engaged in qualifying work. Yes. There were some no's. Says he made a qualifying move and soon after engaged. So yes, because he engaged. No, he has to work for a week. Okay. He worked less than 10 days. Now, some of you will have state comments that say a minimum duration is they have to be 10 days or they have to be a week or they have to have. And some of you do not have those restrictions on there. As far as the guidance, there are like short duration moves. It asks you to, come up with your own state policy. But there isn't anything in the guidance that says, okay, they have to have moved, engaged in qualifying work and stayed in the qualifying work for 13 days or 6 days or anything like that. But states they can interpret that. So it said he may return to work. So right now, the reason he's not at work is because of his illness. Comment, I would sign him up either way with Tomas as a guardian or with him on his own. And there's a comment, he engaged in the qualifying work. Yes, Tomas is the guardian. One day is not eligible. It was unclear if Javier went with the uncle to the farmer's market or if he went with him as a qualifying move. Okay, so, but it says Javier went and worked at the vineyard for 1 day right there. He did not work enough days to qualify. So those of you that say he does not work enough days to qualify, what is your state policy on how many days they have to work? Says yes, work even a few hours qualifies as long as it's temporary seasonal. Yes, he worked. 1 day does not qualify. I thought he had to work for 3 days. I would say no because he only went 1 day, not substantial. So just I would ask you, what's your policy? So if your state has a policy to say substantial work is this, but according to the guidance, they have to engage in eligible work to be considered for themselves, or they have to be moving with a migratory agriculture worker. So Javier, I know the question was specifically, is he eligible on his own? Would he be eligible no matter what? Even if you were like, okay, Javier, I'm not going to count the 1 day. Would he still be eligible? What do you think? Could you go with the Uncle Tomas? What do you think? It says the 1 day could not be considered enough to establish himself as a migratory agriculture worker, would depend on state by state. Even if Javier did not establish, he qualifies with Tomas as the guardian. So that's another example. Sometimes you have this one thing we can be splitting hairs over, and another thing you could be like, I would just find out if Tomas, if he's picking up and moving with them, he's coming and going. Tomas is definitely a migratory agriculture worker. He's moving with them, and you can see that. So you can definitely it says here, Javier did not secure employment in a reasonable time. Javier went with them at the same time and got work, but he got sick. So I would have to ask more questions. I know our state says they would have to work. So yeah, so some of you have specific, which is good practice, that you're not just like, oh, they worked for a couple hours, then we move forward. But each one of you is different. And so you want to look at what your state policy, but no matter what, he should be able to qualify due to the work that Tomas is doing there. So how long does Javier receive migratory services if he isn't in school? So can Javier be eligible for MigraNet even if he's not in school? What do you think? Of course he can. And someone says it's not clear that Javier made a qualifying move. Do you guys think that he made a qualifying move? He picked up from Texas and moved to California. Would that be considered a qualifying move? What do you think? Several of you say North Carolina doesn't have a minimum for days of work. What's the minimum time? So there is no requirement in the guidance for a specific minimum thing. It's there if a state interpretation or state policy goes in that, then you would go with whatever that is. So like some say, if in Pennsylvania he worked for a day, he's eligible. So yeah, the purpose is really, what is your policy? Could you go off someone? It's not saying that he left because he didn't want to work there anymore. It's saying he got sick. And so he may be coming back. He may not be coming back, but he's not been able to return to work yet. So, so it says only if, so lots of comments here, but you would remind yourself, find out what your state says as far as what would be the time. So the easiest way would be looking at the uncle. Does anyone think that the uncle, that he would not, that in this scenario, there's no way that he'd be eligible? It says the only thing with going with the uncle is that could hinder him from continuing to update his QAD moving on his own if he's not the worker. Okay, that's a good point too. If he picks up and moves again, he would have to be, moving with a migratory agriculture worker because he would not be considered one himself. It seems as if he previously performed the work, maybe in previous season. So good point. You could figure out, was he already established by work that he'd done before? So yes. Okay. So to get clean eligibility, it would be best to qualify him under Tomas, but if they ever separate in the future, we might want to make a note that Javier has also worked in the comments section, the recruiter's notes. So Javier definitely moved. I mean, he picked up and moved from Texas to California, so there's definitely a move there. How about if he got in an automobile accident and did not work at all? So then he would only be able to go through his uncle there. Okay, so if you ever feel like you put a lot of thought into scenarios, it's because there's so many things and factors that you're thinking about. So it depends on, to qualify on his own as a migratory agriculture worker. Again, the guidance does not say that it has to be, it doesn't say, it just says they have to pick up and engage in eligible work within 60 days. So you can kind of see here. So you just got to look and think about these different things, but you do have, like it says here, OSY cases require extra diligence. You want to look at everything about them. You want to look at everything with anyone they're with. And a lot of times the eligibility can be totally based on that. So since there is no requirement, that we're looking at the scenario to say if he was even if you took the guardian out, there is nothing in the guidance that says that one day wouldn't. But I also want to say that your COE could look different in your state, if you would go through the guardian, or if you had a policy that said no, one day is not enough. Because I do know that states have like short duration moves, and they may say, well, it has to be a series of them. But this is not a short duration move. This would be something you'd have to look and see. So, and I think we forgot a little box there too. So, if you look at, we're looking at from Alamo, Texas to Fresno, California, the child work. Now, this is if we were looking at Javier being the one that would qualify. If not, we would have the worker as his guardian and kind of explaining what the guardian did. So you can do it either way. Okay, moving on. I think we have time. We'll see how far we get. We're on scenario 4. So the split family, preceding and joining the worker. Pedro Gutierrez left Hidalgo County, Texas on March 11th, 2026 to take a temporary work at a crab processing plant in Crisfield. So I'm just thinking, where in the world was Crisfield? Did I not put that in there? His wife, Carmen, and their 3 children stayed behind to finish the school year. Okay, that's in Maryland, sorry. On June 16th, 2026, Carmen packed up the children and drove to Maryland to join Pedro. She arrived a day later. However, by the time they arrived, Pedro had lost his job and was no longer employed at the plant. The children enrolled in the local summer school program at the local school that was offering. I don't think I can read right now. Is this family eligible? What is the QID and what is the residency date? So you know how this works. So I'm going to open up scenario 4. Do not give me the answer yet. And here you go. So take a few minutes. Let's try to get over 50% participation. We're going to go for 60 because we want to make sure everybody is putting your thoughts in there. So take a few minutes and give us your thoughts. All right, we're at 52%, trying to get to 60. All right, we're close enough. All right, let me share the results. Okay, so 687, we're closer. 87% of us say yes, they're eligible. 13% say no. Okay, we're going to come back to no. If eligible, what would be the most recent qualifying arrival date? We've got 19% saying it would be 3/11/26, 68% saying 6/17/26, 3% saying 6/18/26, and 20 of you saying they're still not eligible. There are, when we talk about the residency date, 11% say 3/11/26. Several of you were saying we had the dates wrong in there, but 78% said 6/17/26, and then 11% say they're not eligible. Okay, so let's again walk through this. So he leaves Hidalgo County on March 11th to take temporary work at crab processing plant in Crisfield, Maryland. I have it farther down there, but don't have it right there. His wife Carmen and their 3 children stay behind. So he picks up and moves, and he winds up getting a job there in the crab processing plant. So could he be considered a migratory agriculture worker? Now everyone says dates are wrong. The dates are not wrong. June 16th, Carmen packed up the children and drove to Maryland to join Pedro. She arrived a day later. Okay, so would he be considered a migratory agriculture worker? Yes or no? What do you think? Yes. So would his move be, would he be considered a migratory agriculture worker as of June 16th? Or would he be considered a migratory agriculture on this March move when he gets the job? March. Yes, exactly. Okay. So then Carmen leaves on June 16th and joins him on June 17th. So when would be, several of you put the qualifying arrival date as March 11th, 2026. How would that be possible? What do you think? Those of you that said, hey, I think it's March 11th for the QID, for when that eligibility for the kiddos, what would that, so there's a comment there that says, is there any situation where March 11th, 2026 in this scenario would be a QAD? Is there anyone that says, no, it's March 11th? No, there's no way, because the kids, he picks up and moves, there's no kids there, then they join. Now, June 17th, she gets there with him. He's no longer working in agriculture. So does that matter? No. QAD is when the worker. So what's the important detail that makes these guys eligible? As they come, they are joining, they're making a move with a migratory agriculture worker. It's within, less than 12 months. And so he's considered a migratory agriculture worker, even though he's no longer working in that when they show up. He moved and was established. So he was established on March 11th. So could June 16, 2026 be the QAD? Or what would be the QAD? Someone says no. So June 16, 2026 would not be a QAD. There you go. June 17th. Okay. So June 17th, we all agree that could be the QAD. Yes. Okay. So you're really just kind of looking through, we're looking at the details. We also get really used to like, oh, well, the June 16th. And then it's like, okay, reading the details, it was one day later. So a comment, all moved across school district lines, left Hidalgo County to join the worker within 12 months. Work was temporary, lasted less than 12 months. Processing crabs, QAD is 6/17 when the family came together. Also the residency date. Thank you for that. So the residency date is the date they moved into their school district, and he became an eligible in March. Very good summary there. So remember, it's so important to think of when is the migratory agriculture worker established, because it gives you a different way, a different lens to look at this. And those of you that have been in the program a long time, you may be thinking, well, what was the intent, or did they get the move within 60 days? Remember, the most important thing is to figure out if there's an established migratory agriculture worker, when's the last time that was established, and then go from there. If it's a piece of cake move, they all pick up and move, and he works in ag then, even easier. But if it's not, then you have to go back and gauge, figure out when the last time that there was a migratory agriculture worker, when that was established. So very good. We only have 5 minutes left. I don't think we can get through another one. So there are 2 more scenarios in the slides that I will send out to everybody. And we want you to just kind of think about those. And we also have the extra one. So I tell you what, we'll just do this one in the chat box here. All right, we won't do so here's the question. Now, let's see if we can all get it right. If we can all, yes, of course, we got to fill out 2B in the COE. Yeah, that is correct. So thank you for noticing that. I'm going to throw the poll up, and we're just going to see if we can possibly all agree on this particular scenario. We'll do this one fast. I'll just see here. Oh, wow, I don't even see a poll for this one. Never mind. We'll do this with the chat box. So Miguel Sanchez has worked at a large dairy farm in Yakima County, Washington for the past 2 years. In February, his employer offered him a position at a sister dairy operation in Twin Falls, Idaho. Miguel accepted, moving his family across state lines. His wife Elena and their 2 children moved with them. Miguel works full-time at the Idaho dairy, milking cows, maintaining equipment. He has no set end date for his employment. The position is permanent year-round. The family enrolled in the children in the local school. So, is there any way that is there any question that we got tons and tons of no's, but is there any situation in this scenario, maybe more information that they possibly could be eligible? What do you think? Somebody says yeah. And if you say yes, what would it be? Someone says break and pay. So it says here he's worked at a large dairy farm for the past 2 years. So we've got to look at that window and look the whole 36 months to see if there was anywhere else before that. But again, you guys are absolutely right. On this current situation, we're not seeing any breaks in employment. We're seeing that this is a permanent situation. But question was if wife worked seasonal or part-time. Very good. Kids are a little bit too small for that. Or if there was some sort of statement that said the employer said he was only going to hire him. But in this current situation, let's see. Ignore the last 2 years. He moved across state national lines. Kids went with him. Temporary work, milking cows. If he doesn't work more than 12 months, he could quit, get fired, etc. before 12 months is up. So you could always follow up with this family and see if they wind up working there that full time or not. So this can cover you in the future, but COE summary of previous scenario is important for now. I'm not sure what. So what if the worker says he's moving in less than 12 months? And wouldn't his word be more important than the employer? So yeah, that's a good point too. If he says, the employer offers him a position at the sister dairy, he accepts, and then you wind up talking to him and they say, we hate Idaho. It is so cold here. We are going to get out of here. I can't stand this, and I'm going to be leaving. But right here it says he has no set end date for his employment. The position is described as employer as permanent. So very good point. You want to talk to the family and see if the family has different plans from that. So, okay. Well, if you ever wondered if you had to think a lot about, about eligibility, we do. But there are some grounding principles that you can see if there's an established migratory agriculture worker, and that makes things a lot easier. And then you want to look at all the other things. And so towards the end of here, I'm going to drop in here a quick survey that we have. We always like to know your thoughts and on our training. So if you'll help me out and go ahead and let us know your thoughts on the training today. There is that. And we appreciate you guys joining us. And we're going to be doing our monthly webinars. We're still crossing our fingers for year 4 funding for the SIG, but we're going to be doing bearing that we get our money and everything, all the SIG money comes out. We'll do a monthly webinar just on different topics like we always do, and we'll do a separate scenarios one that we'll try to record, and hopefully it'll be helpful for you. So let me drop the survey in one more time in the chat box, and we'll see if that works. There it is. See if that works. Okay, we'd love your thoughts. Yeah, the last scenario was right. If it's a permanent job, then it wouldn't have been eligible. So, okay, thank you guys. I hope this was helpful, and we will see you later on. Take care.